The trouble with fighting for human freedom is that one spends most of one's time defending scoundrels. For it is against scoundrels that oppressive laws are first aimed, and oppression must be stopped at the beginning if it is to be stopped at all. Wise words from the one and only H.L. Mencken. I'd love to give you the quote about hoisting the black flag and slitting throats, but I'll let you look that one up on your own. Many meanings can be taken from this. We do need to fight for human freedom, and that does mean defending scoundrels, the kind of scoundrels that would demand to go against state sponsored narratives. I'm certainly not talking about this kind of scoundrel. No, this coke-addled clown shoe gets plenty of fucking defense from the mainstream media and everyone else. In fact, it's impossible to not defend this particular coked-up clown shoe scoundrel. However, this old scoundrel right here, and what makes him a scoundrel? Well, he's doing something on behalf of his own people. Are you disappointed in Papa Vladimir, Reverend? Well, I certainly am, because I think these actions are about 8 years overdue. Outside of that, I back his play 110%. But I digress. Getting back to defending scoundrels. You see, once you step outside the state-sponsored narrative and start defending scoundrels like this, you'll find yourself quoting from sources like this one. At which point social media will feel obligated to point out that this is Russian state-sponsored media. It's odd because they don't feel the same compunction or compulsion to point out when you quote from this source that it happens to be British state-sponsored media, or when one of you lefties quotes from the ever popular this source that this is American state-sponsored media. And then, of course, you have the media, which is essentially state-sponsored in the sense of the narrative, even though they don't have the official budget. And, of course, I'm talking about this guy and this chick right here, whose transition is going terribly, I should point out. I digress again. Here's some examples of trying to vary from the narrative. And as I've said before, it's always in the framing. For instance, we heard about the attack on the pediatric hospital, that evil attack on the pediatric hospital, the details of which will be discussed later on in this sermon. But they leave out little details like this Ukrainian tank that was found outside an apartment complex. You see, much like Hamas in Gaza, when you put military equipment in civilian areas, you are treating those civilians as de facto human shields. Getting back to this coke-addled clown shoe being a scoundrel, but again, I digress. It's all about the framing. And while we're on framing, how about this story? Now, this comes from MSNBC, the home of this guy. Right. We've already discussed that. And this is how they labeled it as disinformation from this guy. That's right. Biolab weapon stores, materials from biolabs in Ukraine, and they called it Russian disinformation, and they called it a crazy conspiracy theory. But then a funny thing happened. You see, this shill of a so-called Republican happened to be dating this deep state slug, rather interviewing. Dating, that's more of an AOC thing, but we can get into that later. In any case, this deep state slug is Victoria Nuland, Secretary of State in charge of Ukrainian affairs. And suddenly this crazy conspiracy theory was, well, more or less confirmed by this deep state slug. Yeah, she came out and would not outright deny that there were biological weapons, and in fact, confirmed that there were biological laboratories in Ukraine. Yeah. And expressed a great deal of distress about what would happen if the contents of those labs fell into this guy's hands. Now, why would we be upset about the product of those labs falling into this guy's hands? I mean, after all, they certainly weren't weapons labs. And then, well, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine was forced to release this memo. Again, it's all in the framing because the fact checkers, even after the admission, insisted that there was no connection. And their basis for insisting there was no connection was the fact that while the U.S. funded and set up these labs, that they were actually run by Ukrainians, and therefore they were not U.S. biolabs. Once again, it's all in the framing, and we have to think about that word, framing. Because someday soon, we may get to see images like this, or this, or this. All of which, by the way, are images from a Syrian chemical weapon attack that was initially blamed on Assad by the same deep state media that this woman just upset while being interviewed by this so-called Republican senator. In any case, these three images all came back to the same Syrian chemical weapon attack that media blamed on Assad. So when we see images like this, or this, or this, as we may in the coming weeks, we need to think about framing. Because you can rest assured that when we see this, or this in the coming weeks, that this guy is the one getting framed. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. And they are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat dose of the truth cock. Boys and girls, welcome back. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. I think I'm getting better with the clickety click over here. I don't know. Gonna keep working with it, man. Where's the fire in the house? Let's see who's on board. Everybody in for the drum roll. I like to come hard charging out of the starting gate, man. That is, of course, our bumper music, which for those of you who have not been around, who are not one of the OG Reverence Rangers, Prophets of Doom, or Sinner Sisters, will know it's a band from the smoldering ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota, a band called Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser, because every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. While we're on the subject of rock bands from Minneapolis, Roman, I know you are on board. See if you remember this one, a band by the name of Power Mad. Some of you guys will remember them from the, if you're David Lynch fans, if you're cinephiles, you'll remember from the David Lynch Wild at Heart soundtrack. They are the coolest, fucking hardest thrash metal band that you've never fucking heard of. They are also from Minneapolis. I was listening to those guys coming over the past today for my training session over with Professor Morgan over in Portland, putting those FMA skills to work, making myself a little bit harder to kill. It's a good thing to do every other week or so. Do a quick roll call. Let's see who's on board early. Of course, Brother Joel, yes. All right. And, of course, Roman, and I am sure his lovely wife, Carrie, and, of course, Joel interjects that Roman and Roxy and Allie, the beautiful RiddleBeautyTales.com. We're a little bit behind, of course, my beloved Arkansas. We must make more babies for the effort for the motherland. You beautiful creature. I miss you, Denise. I'm always happy to have you on board. Brother Dennis Weimer, OG Reverence Ranger, dating all the way back to the late 80s. Oh, I had to check myself. Just barely under the wire. 1989, if memory serves. We go later than 1990. In any case, we go way the fuck back, bro. Way the fuck back. Brother James Pearson, my LEO brethren, and my Tony Flower Spear sister brethren. Always good to have you on board. Good Lord, man. We got all the usual suspects. Joey, the Sultan of Sarcasm. Good evening, Mr. and Mr. America. All the ships at sea. Ariel on board. Haven't seen you in a minute, girl. Good to have you here. Brother Jude, man. Thanks for the support. You see it, man. I've been on fire this fucking week, man. We're going to get into the temporary Facebook fan. I'm pretty proud of that. Miss Emmy. Oh, my mother, Miss Emmy. One of the original Sitter Sisters. We can tell some stories. No, we're not going to tell those stories. Anyway. Brother Tom on board. John Goldsmith, another denizen of the Northwest. We're on standby, brother. We're on standby. I don't think it's going to go the distance, but I've been wrong before, man. Stacy Bond on board. Good Lord, we got everybody, man. Hondo Wade, the mighty Mike Stir. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Always, always. Remember the album? Yeah, you remember the album cover. Kevin Rogers. God damn, man. Out there with the Jeep and the drone. Living the fucking dream. Kevin was the guy that taught this little fish how to swim, man. My very first dive down in St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands. Kevin, badass on all fronts. I love your little missions. By the way, you should check out Kevin's Facebook page because he does some dispatches from the road, just being out there sharing his thoughts with everybody. Dr. Patrick Glatzer, brother, Doc Pat, always good to see you, man. Always good to see you. I wish you were up here, man. I really wish, and more that I was living closer. Or that I was independently wealthy and could fucking fly you up there. But guys, if you need chiropractic care or deep tissue work, go see my bro, Doc Pat, Dr. Patrick Glatzer. He's right up in the Tom Hall area off 249. Yeah, so definitely go check him out. All right, we're going to fade this bumper music out, give a couple of sponsor shout-outs, and we're going to jump right the fuck into it. I'm happy that all you guys are on board. Thank you for being here. Good turnout, good turnout early. You know what I mean? They bleed in over the course of the show usually. I expect we'll probably see G-Dub here in a bit. I know we'll see Brother Ryan. Brother Brian's going to be happy that we actually did the rabbit hole that we had talked about this week. And, of course, we're going to get into more of that. Quick sponsor shout-outs. Let me just get that stuff going. First of all, to Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Roxy and Allie and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. My brother Roman and I go back all the way to 1988. Yeah, it's a long fucking time. A whole lot of y'all weren't even around back then. Yeah, so we've got we've definitely got some fucking history. Let me go ahead and put that roller scrolling on the bottom of the screen right there. But anyway, yes, he is doing some phenomenal work with watercolors. He's got a bevy of beautiful women, and that site is also loaded with testosterone-driven commentary, which was previously on the Opium Tales page on Twitter. But in the height of irony, Jack boots Dorsey right before leaving, booted him off the Twitter platform, and yet somehow I remain. In any case, definitely go check him out at opiumtales.com. And of course, where would we be without Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers over at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, period, end of statement, fucking done. They have the long ship set up every Thursday at American Gun and Pawn off of Sprague. They start around 11 and they serve until it runs out, and it goes fucking quick. So get there. David Black, man, good to have you on board, man. Hope you enjoy the program. Yeah. Emphasis on testosterone driven, man, because we're all about that stuff. So I'm gonna get a sip of liquid enthusiasm here, and real quick, actually, you know what? No, let's do the rabbit hole first. Let's do the rabbit hole first. Go to banners and bang. And sound effects. Haha. There we go. Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That popular segment that we do every week where Brother Ryan Adam Jenkins, the guy that got me into the crane biz and the crane journey and has been a dear friend for years and years and years. He is the minister of the esoteric and the obscure. Some days we get, some weeks we get historical, some weeks we get philosophical, some weeks we get conspiratorial. This week we're going to take a little trip into Cold War history, and we could not. Ryan and I batted this back and forth, and I think that I had mentioned it one time in a sermon, one of the early sermons when Ryan and I were still working on the wind farm up in Nebraska together. You guys have been around for a long time. We'll remember that. But anyway, hey, George. Yeah, no, you haven't missed anything yet, man. You're still early enough. Yes. And of course, yeah, I figured, Christy, you would like that. Yep. You are learning the Cyrillic alphabet as well. You should. It will serve us both well in the gulag, comrade, for being supportive of bad men from Russia. Yeah, there I go down Tangent Street again. Okay, so speaking of Russia, that's where the rabbit hole is going. Now, you guys who are children or products of the 80s, or were at least old enough to be aware of the world back in the 80s. Now, that was my middle school and high school years in the Reagan era, as we've been over before. It's one of the reasons why I have such a passion for Cold War history, because living through the end of it was a scary fucking time to be alive. But you will remember that there was a little thing. It was a product of American advertising, and it was called the Cola Wars. Yes, Pepsi versus Coke, and of course the taste test and the ad firms went back and forth with each other. Which one's the superior product? Which one's pulling it? A blind taste test, blah, blah, blah. And it was called the Cola Wars. Well, here's an interesting thing about cola and fucking war that you may not have been aware of. And that is going to be the fact that Pepsi Cola Corporation, Pepsi Cola Company, Corporation, whatever auspices it was under at the time, at one point had the 6th largest navy on the fucking planet. Now, you've heard it discussed before, where people talk about corporate armies, and people talk about corporations like Blackwater being a literal corporate army. You don't hear a whole lot of talk about corporate navies, but yes, in a quirk of history, Pepsi Cola came into possession of what amounted to the 6th largest navy in the world. Here's what happened. Nikita Khrushchev, who we will be discussing when we get to the 1953 portion of the program a little bit later, when we talk about Nikita's gift and the way that history sometimes echoes in ways that we can't predict. Khrushchev came to America, and while hanging out with Nixon, and Nixon trying to be diplomatic, and Nikita not giving an inch, no, we will bury you. No, you don't do anything. Russia always better than America in everything that we do. But the one thing that he had to concede was fucking Pepsi Cola. He tried fucking Pepsi, and it was amazing to him, and he just thought it was fucking great, and it was one of the few capitalist inroads that made its way into Russia. Anyway, the economy then, during the Soviet era, was very, very, very fucking dodgy. The ruble was unstable, was way more unstable than it is even by today's standards, when they're talking about having cut Putin off at the knees. So we come around to the late 1980s, and by this point, tensions have reached a boiling point. Again, this is my high school years here. In the late 1980s, and tensions had really, really reached a boiling point between the two nuclear superpowers. They had that demand for that sweet, bubbly beverage from evil capitalist, imperialist country who we hate, except for black, bubbly beverage, which is great and almost as good as vodka, which you must say with the W if you are from Russia. Somebody's going to kick my ass for that. It's a horrible fucking impression. My God. I mean, that's so xenophobic and racist. Oh, wait, it's okay to do that if it's fucking white guys that happen to be Russian. I digress. Again, down Tangent Street. So, by the late 1980s, the ruble was extremely unstable, and Russia was bartering because they had to keep these products flowing in, but the ruble was too fucking unstable, and Pepsi Cola no longer wished to do business with them. So Pepsi Cola came up with an arrangement. Actually, Russia came up with the arrangement, and it was brokered through the financial auspices of Pepsi Cola, which was, of course, a more powerful financial entity at the time than Soviet Russia was as a nation. And Russia sold, and I want to go to my reference sheet here so I have an accurate count. Russia sold Pepsi, get this, 17 submarines. We will assume that the ballistic missiles had been taken off the submarines before they changed hands. But Russia sold, as part of a barter agreement, they sold Pepsi Cola Company 17 submarines, a frigate, a cruiser, and a destroyer. The deal was finalized in 1989 when the Soviet Union was already on the verge of and in the early stages of collapse, just to keep the popular uprising and hatred and disdain for the government from getting any worse. You want to keep feeding them their preferred sweet beverage. But yes, the nation of Soviet Russia, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, as it was known at the time, one of which was Ukraine, but we'll get to that later. They sold he sold the Pepsi Cola Company. And again, just to make sure I have an accurate count, 17 submarines, a frigate, a cruiser, and a destroyer. And that deal was brokered in 1989. So you can Google that and go down your own rabbit hole. It is a fucking fascinating little obscure piece of Cold War history, and it was one of the early ones that Ryan and I really bonded over when we got to Nebraska, because he mentioned that in passing about Pepsi having the 6th largest navy in the world, and I was like, you motherfucker, because that is some really, really obscure Cold War shit that only a Cold War history buff or a minister of the obscure like Brother Ryan would know about. So that's the rabbit hole. Pepsi's Navy, Pepsi's Russian Navy is Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. So I wanted to knock that out, get the popular segment out, get the lighthearted stuff out. Then we can get into some heavy shit. Maybe we come back around to some more lighthearted stuff. Let me talk about the band real quick. The band that almost was. And perhaps I'm going to check something on the fly here off of my production screen. Again, this is a very very, very low budget operation here. I am here with a webcam and a laptop. That's essentially it. We're gonna open that and okay, see if I can pull that off. Anyway, let me get back here and get the production screen back up and running. This is a very, very low tech, very low tech operation here. So anyway, I don't think I'm going to be able to post the graphic, but earlier this week on my personal page and on my fan page, because I am pretty much over it, with regard to these guys that are putting Ukrainian flags in their fucking profile, particularly the ones that spent the last fucking 4 odd plus years screaming at all of us about the evils of fucking fascism and everybody's a goddamn Nazi. And when I hold up my OK sign at the end of the sermon, that's a secret symbol for white power. And the shape of the stage at CPAC was proof that Trump was a Nazi. These fucking people have been bitching about Nazis for 4+ years now, and now they've all got Ukrainian flags in their profile. The only trouble with that is there's a little thing, and again, everybody's well aware of the depth and width and breadth of my own racial politics. You know, this is not, we're not passing judgment on any fucking side here. This is a statement on principle. This isn't a statement on anybody's politics. There was a unit of the Ukrainian National Guard called the Azov Battalion. The Azov Battalion There, and you can look that up, AZOV, Azov Battalion. You guys look up their insignia. I'm not going to post it here because I'm not going to take the chance of YouTube pulling the same shit that Facebook did. But you guys can look it up on your own, and you can go see it on the Facebook page because I have been reinstated. The Azov Battalion is a unit of, let's just call it what it is, straight the fuck up Nazis. That's what they are. What? right. Yeah, we could throw some dead horse onto the back. Dude, I didn't have time. You see, this is why I need you around. This is why we got to be on the same job site again, Ryan. I'm going to need you just for production. You know what I mean? It's like we're both going to have to get Sundays off. And that way I can have you deliver the rabbit hole and really fucking take it for a ride. Anyway, the Azov Battalion is a group of literal Ukrainian fucking neo-Nazis. Now, you can feel, about the racial politics of that however you fucking want, but for purposes of war, don't you think it's a little odd that the same people who have been screaming about Nazis and fascists for the last 4+ fucking years are now Ukrainian flags in the profiles, and this is the Azov fucking Battalion. The Azov Battalion, by the way, that are doing things like shelling Russians from civilian areas inside Ukraine. And then, of course, when Russians return the shelling, go, oh, they're shelling civilian areas. Blah, blah, blah. Again, we're back to fucking framing. They are the ones that were responsible for some of those horrible fucking atrocities that you heard of coming out of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, where these Ukrainians immediately after the coup, and let's call it a coup, like all the pigeons walking around Dealey Plaza going coup. Let's call it what it was. It was a coup in Maidan, 2014. We fostered that shit. Immediately afterwards, Joe Biden installed his son. Again, we're off on a tangent. Back to the Azov Battalion and the Facebook man. That unit was responsible for some of the most horrible atrocities against ethnic Russians in Donetsk and Luhansk. And we're talking raping wives in front of their husbands. We're talking butchering entire families. We're talking putting Joker cuts on fucking toddlers. These people are fucking scum. These people are fucking scumbags by any stretch of the fucking imagination. But yet, you've got a Ukrainian flag in your profile. Same guy screaming for the last fucking 4 years about Nazis bad, everyone's a fucking fascist, and you are supporting these fucking actions, whether tacitly, whether out of ignorance, whether out of, you're a fucking grazer and you do whatever the glow box tells you to do. For whatever fucking reason, this is what you're behind. So why was I banned from Facebook? Because I posted that very logo with that very sentiment. You have a Ukrainian flag on your profile. You guys have been screaming about fascism and fucking Nazis for 4 years. You have a Ukrainian flag in your profile. This is the insignia of the Azov Battalion. This is what you're fucking supporting. Facebook banned me on the basis of me posting that insignia was posting hate speech or hate content, as if I had posted a legit swastika, right? This is like the last 30-day ban I picked up for posting a humorous thing about grammar Nazis. So they hit me with a ban. They banned me for 30 days on both pages, and they threatened to depublish and deplatform my fan page, which is what a lot of you are watching on right now, what a lot of you have been visiting on a day-to-day basis for all the political stuff. They basically threatened to pull all of it on the basis of hate speech. And at the same time, for me pointing out that guys with Ukraine flags in their profiles are supporting fucking Nazis. And then at the same time, put a little button at the bottom going, would you like a button on your profile to donate to Ukraine? Right. So you're going to ban me for pointing out that these motherfuckers are Nazis by showing you their Nazi fucking logo, and then ask everybody else if they would like to donate to these, wait for it, fucking Nazis. Ain't that something? I protested the decision. I never thought in 100 years anyone would even look at it. But pretty much verbatim, I'm quoting from memory here because I don't have the page pulled up, but what I told them was, I demand, and this is just the language, I demand that my account be reinstated and that you back off of my fan page. Go back and look at the post. I posted that, I posted that as a statement of historical fact, not to praise their actions, but to excoriate them. The only thing that I have violated is your unspoken policy of fog running for Ukraine, not your precious community standards. Reinstate my fucking account. I did not think in 100 years anything would come of it. My buddy Moses, you guys know him online. Some of you are friends with him on Facebook. Mo Baxter, Moses. He'll always be Moses to me. He might be Mo to you guys. He wants to fucking cut that shit. Fucking pretentious fuck. But he's up in Montana. He holds it down for me whenever I'm in Facebook jail. And Moses hit me up with a message. He was like, bro, did they reinstate your account? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was like, dude, the Azov post is like back up. And I'm like, what? And I go and I check, and sure enough. And so I check my messages, and Facebook has sent me, upon further review, it turns out that you have not violated our community standards. So, long story short, I am back on Facebook. It's odd that they were talking, but it's not entirely out of character, because as Ryan was talking about, he got banned for threatening to choke out a raccoon. Yeah, he was out camping with his son Chase, and they were having a big old time, and raccoon got a little aggressive, and fucking Ryan posted a thing about he was going to choke out a fucking raccoon. Apparently the logarithm. Apparently the algorithm picked up the word choke and fucking kicked him straight up to the curb. So anyway, that's what's going on right now. So the ban has been lifted. I am back on Facebook. For how long is anybody's guess. But first of all, I want to think, since I'm mentioning him in passing, because he's in Montana right now, and it's already fucking dark up there, even with daylight savings time, and it's cold as fuck, and he's tracking grizzlies or shoveling snow or some odd fucking bullshit. But he's still got Starlink, and I don't. Fuck you, Moses. But anyway, if everybody could just say a cool little thank you to my buddy Moses, Mo Baxter, for being there for me every time and holding it down for me every time I get stuck in Facebook jail. Moses, I love you, bro. Sooner or later, we're going to have him on the program, and or maybe he'll just pop up in the comments or something. I don't know. He's an interesting fella, man, but we go way back, man. I mean, I feel like I've known him my whole life. Anyway, so let's get on with media framing. And by the way, if you guys haven't friended Moses, go drop him a friend request. Mo Baxter on Facebook. M-O Baxter, B-A-X-T-E-R. Drop him a friend request. He may or may not get to you, because again, he's sort of a standoffish motherfucker. But if you want to keep any sort of semblance of what's going on, he's the guy that holds it down for me whenever I'm in Facebook jail. So go ahead and hit him with a friend request if you could. So let's get on with framing. Lies, damned lies, and fact checkers. We remember, let me see if I still have that slider up. I may or may not. No, I do not still have that slide. Oh, here's another little thing that happened real quick. You guys take a look at that. All Facebook can do is kick me to the curb for 30 days. YouTube has now declared me potentially offensive forever. So if you're watching me on YouTube, you either have your settings in a certain way, or you had to get hit with this warning going in that it was potentially offensive. And I feel like I've truly arrived, and I'm very, very happy about that. I don't have the slide speaking with regard to the fact checks, but one of the ones that was sticking in my craw a couple of weeks ago, and we discussed it. And in fact, let me see. I may or may not. Here we go. PolitiFact. Yes, we have doubled our oil imports from Russia in the last year. Maria Bartiromo. She is a journalist, and she stated on February the 22nd in a TV segment, we were talking about oil prices and what was going on. And at that point was the buildup to the situation we have in Ukraine right now. Maria Bartiromo said, we have doubled our oil imports from Russia in the last year. PolitiFact rated that false. Yes, they rated that false. And then immediately below that, right, after they rated it false, the U.S., and this is, I'm reading from PolitiFact right now, they labeled it false. Now they have backed it off because revisionist history, hashtag Orwell, hashtag memory hole. They rated it false. Now it's mostly false. They say the U.S. did not double oil imports from Russia in the last year, and then go on to say, the most recent data from U.S. Energy Information shows the U.S. increased its oil imports from Russia by about 28% in the first 11 months of 2021. The U.S. did, again, PolitiFact's own words, the U.S. did double the amount of crude oil imported from Russia last year. But Russia accounts for only 3% of overall U.S. crude oil imports in 2021. So they rated it false, and now they backed it off to it's just mostly false, except for it's 100% fucking true because the U.S. did double the amount of crude oil. What did Maria Bartiromo say? We have doubled our oil imports from Russia in the last year. Now, she did not specify crude, so that gave these lying fucks a chance to wiggle out from under shit. This is how they work. This is how they have always worked. In the age before fact checker was an actual term, you guys will remember there was a site called Snopes, and it used to irritate the fucking piss out of me because people would just Snopes you, whatever. If it didn't fit their fucking narrative, they knew they could go to Snopes and just go, see Snopes. And then you'd like read the stuff that was actually on Snopes, and they'd rate it false. And then you would go and read, what Snopes had to say about it, and 100% of the relevant factors were true, but they would pick the one straw man off to the side and say, yes, but this wasn't true, so we rate it false. Make it make it real, explain what's happening. I have no idea what the hell to believe anymore. Julia Deal McNamee. Nobody has any idea what to believe anymore, sweetheart, but I'm going to iron it out for you because you know I have always shot straight with you, even though I did lie and sort of not mention the ridiculous crush that I had on you in high school. Anyway, sorry, airing out a dirty laundry here. No, you can always trust me to shoot straight with you, sweetheart, because they know how to spin. And what you really have to do, Julia, and this applies to everyone across the board, is you really have to sharpen your critical thinking skills. You really have to sharpen your critical thinking skills. And you have to get familiar with a certain Latin phrase called qui bono, as it's sometimes pronounced, I think in error. Please feel free to fact check me on that. Qui bono, who benefits, right? When you are looking at who is lying and how they are lying, when you're taking a look at the way that they weave this fabric, this fucking tapestry of deception, they weave it so that their interests are always protected. We don't have to get too conspiratorial about it, guys. We don't have to get too conspiratorial about it. There's not, the elders of Zion and the fucking gnomes of Zurich and, the secret council of 12 that's fucking run everything. The only thing you have to remember is that money protects money and power protects power. So, Julie, because you asked, think about this. When we launched the war, the United States, on false premise, right? False premise in 2003, the second time around. False premise in 1991, the first time around under Bush Sr. We launched a war of aggression against a sovereign nation, not only in another continent, but in another hemisphere, the other side of the fucking planet. We launched a war of aggression against a sovereign nation, the same sovereign nation twice, the span of a little over a decade, based on false premise. First time around, it was atrocities against the Kuwaiti people, and we're going to talk some more about that. I've got all my bullet points lined up. Second time around was based on weapons of mass destruction. And all of this came out as a lie. All of this came out as a fucking lie. Let me see if you remember. Did the entire world financial structure cut us loose and make it impossible for us to apply our currency to any international trade deals? Did it make it not only impossible but outright illegal to use the United States dollar to trade for goods like bulk wheat or oil or commodities that were important to the survival of our people? Did MasterCard, Visa, every fucking major credit card company cut off our fucking access to the world market by any of these things? Did every major corporation outside of the United States, Japan, Japanese corporations, Chinese corporations say, fuck you, we're not doing business with you anymore? No, they did not. Who benefits? Who benefits? Key bono. Who benefits? When you look at what Vladimir Putin is doing, and this is an isolated example, Julie, I don't mean to say that this is the only thing to get wrapped up in with regard to the fact checkers. We go into vaccines here in a minute. Start looking at what they are trying to sell you and who they are trying to sell it for. Putin is evil. Putin's the new Hitler. Disney removes their shit from Russia because they invaded a sovereign nation. They invaded a sovereign nation in their own backyard that foreign powers were trying to put nuclear weapons in. How do you think we'd react if China was putting nuclear weapons in Canada or Mexico? Or even a few countries removed, down just south of the Panama Canal. If they were putting nuclear weapons in Colombia, for the love of fuck, that far south of us, how the fuck do you think we'd react? Probably not well. Do you think we would be willing to invade the sovereign nation of Colombia to prevent that from happening? Absolutely. We would do it before the weapons ever got there, which is exactly what the fuck he did. We would warn them, do not try to put your weapons, do not try to make an alliance with Mexico or Canada against us. Excellent point, Dennis. Excellent point. We did the same in Cuba. My retort to that would be we were still in the wrong in fucking Cuba, because Cuba was just a Russian response to us putting missiles in their backyard the first time in Turkey. And for those of you who are a little weak in geography, guess what? Ukraine, a lot closer to Russia than Turkey. As in, they have a border right fucking there. So, again, who benefits? How does Russia benefit from any of the things that they're fucking doing? They have no intention of fucking taking over goddamn Europe. If they did, they already would have exercised tactical nuclear weapons in that fucking theater. It's part of fucking Russian military doctrine if we're going full bore, all in on the attack. What does Putin say he wants? Autonomy, first of all, for Donetsk and Luhansk. And as I said last week, speculating on it, I think this whole thing of him pressing through to Kiev is to get rid of Zelensky and say, look, this is what I want. I'll fucking pull everything out right now and I'll fucking leave the rest of Ukraine. I want two things. One, a guarantee that Ukraine never becomes part of NATO. And NATO's pretty gun shy about it right now. They're like, hey, man, we didn't think that Zelensky was going to get us in this much fucking heat. And they don't want him. They're all fucking backing off. He's going to ask for a guarantee that Ukraine never becomes a part of NATO, and he's going to ask for autonomy for Donetsk and Luhansk. They become autonomous, independent nations and Russian protectorates, and he'll get it. That would be the sensible offer to offer him right now. Julie, if you're still on, Key bono, who benefits? Think about the vaccine. Look how we were sold that fucking lie. And it's all that house of cards is coming crumbling down now. I will never forget, by the way, I will never forget. you motherfuckers that broke weak. I will never forget you motherfuckers that bitched up after talking a good ball game about being principled anti-authoritarian. I will never forget when you showed me exactly who the fuck you are. But I digress. Breathe and let it go. Key bono, who benefits? Why would they be pushing so fucking hard? Vaccines, 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 and not talking about treatments that we knew worked. Hydroxychloroquine, you want to argue, go fuck yourself. Jury's not out anymore on hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. Given early enough in the protocol, they are effective treatments. Period. End of statement. Done. Yeah, but we go, no, done. Your lie is over. Because even the science says it now. Monoclonal antibodies. If you still want to fucking dispute the other two, yes, Julie, yes, and follow the money. Follow the money. Key bono, who benefits? Why would they shun hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and fucking monoclonal antibodies? Why? Because Pfizer and Moderna don't make massive fucking profits. Who benefits? Why are they selling you a narrative? This feels false. I'm looking at information that says that children really don't get COVID. And when they do, they have an even higher survival rate than the 99.9% that the rest of the population has. Why would there be such a push to get vaccines in the arms of fucking 4 and 5-year-olds? Key bono. Who benefits? Our cadaver in chief, Joe Biden. Oh, vaccines are free. They're not free, motherfucker. They're free to you. But every single dose that goes out is money in Pfizer's pocket, and it's money that's being taken out of yours. Why would they be trying to sell the narrative? Why did Israel buy, 40 million doses with a total population of about 13 million people, and they bought 40 million doses? I could be off on my numbers there. Fact check me, please. I'm not your fucking girl. Fact check me, please. But Israel bought a number of doses of that vaccine that was roughly equivalent to at least twice, and I want to say 3 times their population. Fact check me on this. Why? Key bono, who benefits? Pfizer and Moderna. Why were they buying doses when they already had more than enough for every man, woman, and child in the United States? Why do they continue to buy more fucking doses? Why? Because they thought they were going to go bad? Maybe to a degree. But if they're going to go bad or they're not going to be effective against the next variant, why keep fucking shelling out money? Key bono, who benefits? So, Julie, if you're wondering, because I don't know what to believe anymore, you got to dig deep. You got to dig deep into every fucking story. Let's get back into it, shall we? Here's one, and I'm okay. Julie, stay with me on this one, because I think this one is a really, really righteous illustration of the devil is in the details. This is from CNN. March 9th, Europe, Russia invasion, Ukraine evacuations. And here is the story. Are you ready for this, Julie? Stick with me on this. Russia's bombing of maternity and children's hospital, an atrocity, Zelensky says. They bombed a maternity and children's hospital. Wow. That really tugs at the heartstrings, doesn't it? Oh my God, Putin's shelling kids. So then you read a little deeper into the story. The attack came despite a 12-hour pause in hostilities to allow refugees to evacuate a number of towns and cities. So not only is he shelling maternity hospitals, but he's doing it in the middle of a ceasefire. The destruction is enormous. The building of the medical facility where the children were treated recently is completely destroyed. So it sounds really horrible. Tugs at the fucking heartstrings. Oh my God, Putin is shelling a fucking kids' hospital. And then you read a little deeper. The facility was entirely destroyed. Okay. So probably a shitload of people had to have gotten killed, right? at least 17 people were injured. 17 people were injured. And an updated version of this story says that 3 people were killed. Okay, so again, devil in the details. You shelled a maternity hospital and destroyed the facility and only managed to kill 3 people and injure 17. Does that sound right? Does that sound like the appropriate casualty count for an attack like that? An unprovoked attack on a maternity hospital? I don't really think so. So you want to hear a theory? Because again, like we looked at earlier, this right here, earlier in the week, Ukrainian tank. I keep in mind, well, that's technically, that's a Russian tank. Yes, all of Ukraine's tanks are going to be Russian tanks from the Soviet era. This one is one belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces. And where did they find that? Abandoned by the coward-ass Ukrops that fucking hauled ass once Putin's boys were closing in on them. They found it outside an apartment building in a civilian area. So, again, Julie, you're wondering who to believe? Think about that. Read the fucking story about, read the story about a maternity hospital getting bombed. Oh my God. Anytime you feel your emotions getting pulled in to a fucking news story, you're probably being lied to. There's a good rule. There's a good rule of thumb. And I'm way off my subject matter, and I'm not going to fucking apologize. I don't care. This is a rant. You guys hang out. And fuck time limits too today, man, because I'm on a fucking tear and I'm letting it hang. To the left. Yeah. Anyway, ponderously. Fucking ponderously. That's my college word. I got like 3 of those. Anyway. Immediately your heartstrings start getting pulled. Julie, you still with me? Your heartstrings start getting pulled. Oh my God. He bombed a children's hospital. Wow. Okay. And how many people died? 3? That's still unconfirmed, by the way, as are the 17 wounded. But the entire fucking facility is destroyed. So here's the theory. They cleared the kids out and the staff and the mothers. They cleared them out and put fucking tanks and artillery positions in close proximity to that fucking hospital, knowing full well that launching attacks on incoming Russian troops from those locations will result in everything in the general area getting fucking carpet bombed in return. And the optics of that. Oh my God, Bart, that's so fucking crazy. Really? Because Hamas has been doing it in Gaza since there was Gaza. Look it up. It's a famous tactic, man. Haji uses that shit all the time. They'll launch attacks from fucking minarets. And then when they get shelled, oh my God, they're shelling our religious. It's the same thing. They will launch attacks from literally inside children's hospitals. Look that up. Children's hospitals in fucking Gaza. They will launch rocket attacks from right beside of or inside the complex of children's hospitals in fucking Gaza. And when Israel returns fire, and I am not, let me be abundantly clear because apparently nuance is dead. I am not exonerating Israel for their foreign policy across the board. I have a mountain of problems with Israeli foreign policy. Having said that, facts are fucking facts. If Hamas is launching rockets from inside a fucking complex that contains a children's hospital and you need to take out that rocket position, you hit him. You hit those goat fucking savages with everything you fucking have. Same thing here. If they try to tug at your heartstrings, they are fucking lying to you. They're fucking lying to you. This is how you sort through the bullshit. So that was one of my bullet points. Russia's, and again, this is all about media framing and how they are selling it to you. Again, the tagline was lies, damned lies, and fact checkers. And we always come back to framing. It's all in how the story is framed. Here, it's just the optics. Straight away, it's just the optics. But again, bombing a maternity and children's hospital, you dig a little deeper and you find out that they destroyed the entire facility, but there were only 3 fatalities, which can't be confirmed, and 17 wounded, which also can't be confirmed. But here's a shit ton of pictures of a children's hospital that got bombed. Oh, Putin bad, Ukraine good. Well, fuck yourself. Sorry, Sparky, not buying it. So, next thing, with regard to, close that one off, and we're going to close that one off, and that one. So about framing. Biological weapons labs in Ukraine. Lies, damn lies, and fact checkers. It all comes back to fucking framing. This is Victoria Nuland. We went over, we touched on her briefly. Oh, God, don't say that. Touched on her. Ugh. Dude, I'm into some freak shit, but I got my fucking limits, man. Ugh. Victoria Nuland. So we dealt with her. Touched on. Sorry. God, I threw up in my mouth a little. We addressed her briefly in the opener. Victoria Nuland is Deputy Secretary of State in charge of Ukrainian affairs. She was also, I should point out, one of the people that pushed the Russian collusion narrative. She was also one of the people who was hard and heavy for the fucking Gulf War, weapons of mass destruction, blah, 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 bloody blah. Well, again, they have been trying to frame it, this thing about the biological laboratories. First of all, getting back to PolitiFact, right? Who I just read to you, lying about doubling the oil imports. They said outright that when the biological weapons lab stuff came up, they said outright, this is stuff from MSNBC. PolitiFact said outright that it was false. And their straw man, I guess, for lack of a better word, was that no, there were no U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. And the way that they got away with that was that they may have been set up and funded by the United States, but they were actually run by the Ukrainians. So technically, they're Ukrainian bioweapons labs, and therefore the story is false. Again, it's in the framing. And when I see that it's in the framing, that's a nice way of saying creative ways to box in a fucking pus dripping lie. When you hear the word framing, that's what I'm really talking about. A way to take a pus dripping lie and package it in a way to sell to the hashtag grazers. That's the way that it works. So first they said there were no labs. And of course, that Maddow guy did his part. Broadcasting this on MSNBC and calling it all Russian propaganda. USA Today called it all Russian propaganda. And that anybody suggesting that there were biological weapons labs in the Ukraine was somehow doing the work of Russia. We were carrying water for Putin. They did everything shy of a backhanded accusation of us being Russian agents for merely asking questions. Hey, man, what about these biological labs? So anyway, Senator Marco Rubio, Rhino, if ever there was interviewing Victoria Nuland, and I'm going to play the audio. This is how lies get sold to the American public, and this is how stories get redirected. You will remember that in the run-up to Russia's incursion into Ukraine, and see right there, I just framed something. I didn't call it an invasion, I called it an incursion. You see, we can all play that game if we're so inclined. If we're skilled wordsmiths, we can all play that fucking game. It's not an invasion. It's an intervention. It's an incursion. It's a police action. We can call it an invasion. I'll call it an invasion. But I threw out that word incursion specifically to make the point. You see how this works when you play word games. So, Russian invasion of Ukraine. They were addressing this. And this is how, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you will remember that the State Department said that the Russians were setting up a false flag, right? They offered no proof of this. I played you the soundbite a couple of weeks ago where the State Department goes, well, I just told you. It was like, yes, but could you show us some evidence? Well, there's the evidence. I just told you. I told you we have intelligence reports. Yeah, but we'd like to see the evidence. Well, we've got to protect our sources. Well, then you have no evidence. No, there is evidence, and that is our chain of command, and I just told you that Russians are planning a false flag. This is what we call preemptive justification, and it's another framing tactic that they use. You see, they fully planned on Ukrainian troops in the east taking action against Russian forces, primarily in Donetsk and Luhansk. And so they had to preemptively frame this thing to where if Ukrainians launched on Russian troops, that it was a false flag, that Vladimir Putin was using it as an excuse to invade. What they didn't count on was that, unlike them, Vladimir Putin has balls and he doesn't need a fucking excuse. He wasn't waiting around to be fired on. He massed his fucking troops, and when he was ready to pull the trigger, he didn't wait around and put together some fucking false flag. He just said, we're going. We're going. That had to have been pretty disappointing to all the people that pushed that false flag thing for a couple of weeks. Go back and look, man. Go back and look. Go back and look at some of my old sermons because we played the sound bites. Speaking of sound bites, here's the one from Rubio in interviewing Victoria Nuland. And I want you to listen closely because there will be a quiz.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Simple enough, yes or no question. Is it not? Does Ukraine have biological weapons? You see, for the previous week, we have, when I say we, the elite of the alert, people with two brain cells to rub together that aren't falling for the fucking narrative, that aren't falling for the propaganda, are being accused of pushing Russian propaganda by saying that there are biological weapons and biological weapon labs in Ukraine. So Rubio asks her point blank, and keep in mind, she's testifying in Congress under oath. So if she bullshits, she's going to be guilty of perjury. Not that Victoria Nuland is troubled in the least by perjuring herself. She's done it a dozen times before. Nobody's ever held her to account for it. So once again, Rubio asks a very simple yes or no question.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Am I a conspiracy theorist? Are all these people just carrying water for Putin and lying? And listen very closely to the response.
Ukraine has biological research facilities.
If you could see the look on her face right now and the way she is parsing her words, look it up on YouTube. Look up Victoria Nuland admits. Use that as your search engine on YouTube. And if they haven't, memory hold it, you'll be able to see it. Watch the look on her face and the way that she's parsing her words. Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons? Oh, they have research facilities. Please, Victoria, do go on.
Which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure.
Research materials. Keep in mind, this same flapping cunt with the help of that Maddow guy and that Stelter bitch, push this shit for the previous week that we were all either crazy conspiracy theorists or actual Russian agents for saying this very fucking thing. So again, simple yes or no question. Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons? Well, the correct answer, if we're all nutty conspiracy theorists and Russian agents, the correct answer is no, right? They have research facilities, and we have serious concerns about the Russians getting control of these research facilities and these getting access to these research materials. But no weapons, right? Let me ask you something, Sparky. If it's not weapons, why would you be fucking concerned about it? If it's biological research labs and you're playing around with, I don't know, the common cold, or even, I don't know, bat coronaviruses, tularemia, what the fuck ever, that isn't a global world ender, why would you fucking be concerned about it? If it's just biological weapons labs, we're researching a cure for the cold. We're looking for an updated AIDS treatment, something. But no, you're deeply troubled and concerned that the Russians are going to gain access to these labs and seize the research materials contained there, which of course certainly are not biological weapons. And if they are, we certainly didn't fund it, just like we didn't fund gain of function in Wuhan. Is this all starting to come together for you now? Yeah? You feel me? All my prophets of doom, my reverends, rangers, my sinner sisters out there, you feel me? Yeah. That's where we're at. But please, Victoria, do go on.
You're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country.
Now, what you're seeing Rubio do now is redirect, because what he expected her to say was no. An absolute unequivocal no. Case closed. Anybody fucking saying this is a crazy conspiracy theorist or a Russian agent carrying water for Vladimir Putin. But Victoria Nuland's cunt flap was under oath. So she parsed and she ducked and she dodged and she did the fucking Ali bob and weave rope-a-dope. Skillfully, I might add. As I was saying last week, I admire people who can lie so brilliantly and with such fucking ease and lack of conscience. Jen Psaki, Victoria Nuland, Rachel Maddow, Brian Stelter. It's something to be admired and marveled at. Holy Christ, you're fucking evil, but bravo, what a skill. As somewhat of an accomplished wordsmith myself, I admire someone that knows how to play with language. So anyway, he asks a direct question. She gives a parsed answer, and he's like, holy shit, she just basically said the quiet part out loud. She was not supposed to say that. So here's the redirect. Because I'm not going to say there will be a release of chemical or biological weapons. Here's what I will say. In Syria, let me get back to this. In Syria, there was a release on the eve of Trump pulling our troops out of Syria. There was an oopsie biological weapons release, and they blamed it on Assad. And they gave us pictures like this, and like this, and like this. Legitimate victims of a legitimate chemical weapon attack. Here's the thing, Sparky, had nothing to do with Assad. The deep state pushed that to push Darth Cheeto into keeping our fucking troops there. You know, the neo-Nazi who was going to start World War III. Yeah, trying to end yet another war on top of Afghanistan and, in a roundabout way, Korea. What a terrible guy. What a fucking absolute warmonger. But on the eve of him pulling U.S. troops out of fucking Syria, Assad for whatever reason, decided to release chemical weapons and give us images like this and this and this. Key bono. Who benefits? Why the fuck would Assad, on the eve of America pulling the troops out of fucking Syria, release chemical weapons and give this kind of optic to the fucking world? Why would he do that? Key bono. Who benefits? Certainly not Assad. The war machine that wants us to keep our troops in there. Key bono. Who benefits? So again, watch the redirect. Let's get back to Rubio and Nuland here. Watch the redirect. So after her having said the quiet part out loud, he says, the Russians have put out stuff that if there is anything that the Ukrainians are planning a chemical attack. The Ukrainians have used chemical weapons before. They've used them in Donetsk and they've used them in fucking Luhansk. There are reports. I won't back it because I can't confirm it. There are reports that there were planned or deliberate releases of chemical weapons in fucking Crimea before Putin put a stop to it. I cannot confirm that. I'm just saying, as long as we're talking optics, as long as we're talking reports. But if you think the Ukrainians are above using fucking chemical or biological weapons, get over yourself. Get over yourself, you fucking Pollyanna grazer. And so he gets the parsed answer and watch the redirect. And again, the spin, absolutely fucking brilliant. Go.
Groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Actually, that's classic leftist political technique. But let's go, Victoria. Let's fucking play that game. Again, I want you to go and I want you to watch this video because if you could see the way her entire mood changes. She looks desperate when she's got to answer for the research materials and biological weapons lab. But when Rubio fucking throws her that lifeline about if there is a release, that it's 100% the fault of Russia, look at the smile that lights up her fucking face. Thank God, Marco, you saved me. Go watch. Don't take my fucking word for it. Go watch for yourself. And Julie, I hope you're still with me. Because again, long-winded rant, mama. Whew. But that's how you tell. Key bono. Think about this. If there is a chemical or biological weapons release, right? They're going to blame it on Russia. Key bono. How the fuck would Russia benefit at this point, having already been ostracized in the world community? And of course, the report's going to be, well, Putin just feels like he's got nothing to lose. Putin already has nothing to lose. You've already taken everything from him. You think he's looking forward to NATO getting involved? Certainly not. Do you think he's afraid of it? Guess again, Sparky. Clearly, Papa Vlad doesn't give a fuck at this point. But he stands nothing to gain by releasing fucking chemical weapons. His troops are on the move. Yes, they are meeting heavy resistance. But the Ukrainian resistance hasn't been nearly as unified or nearly as effective as the deep state press would have you fucking believe. He already controls Donetsk and Luhansk. Mariupol is fucking surrounded. Odessa standing by, to get back to Full Metal Jacket, standing by. Mariupol has been overrun. Odessa is standing by to be overrun. Kiev's going to fall. Kiev is going to fall. I'm not going to call it Kyiv in the same way I'm not going to call Rhodesia Zimbabwe. Go fuck yourself. I don't shift with the wind, Sparky. So he throws it a lifeline. If there is a release, oh, it's 100% Putin's fault. 100% confidence that Russia did it. Why? Why? They're already winning. They're already fucking winning. And the intent is to take Kiev, but he knows he can't hold it. If he was going to use chemical weapons, he would have done it at the fucking outset. But if there is a chemical weapons incident in Ukraine from one of these bioweapons labs that doesn't exist, again, we get back to Cui Bono, who benefits. You want something that'll finally unite and take away whatever fucking reluctance that NATO still has, or that thinking people still have. The optics of a chemical weapon attack. Boy, people jumped on that Assad shit. And you go back and look now. Here's the Google search words: Syrian chemical attack debunked. The one I just showed you the pictures of, the ones that they blame on Assad, right? You go down, and the first four, I'll give you the first several search results. The echo chamber of Syrian chemical weapons conspiracy. Next result: evidence debunks OPCW claim on Syrian chemical attack. Next one from the Associated Press, OPCW, that's a chemical weapons investigative organization, by the way. OPCW probes couldn't prove chemical use in two Syria attacks. From Al Jazeera, OPC. Now, again, you got to dig deep, because this is Al Jazeera, so they're going to play. They've got their own agenda. Everybody has an agenda, myself included. There's no such thing as being totally objective. There's being honest to the best of your ability, but nobody's totally objective. Everybody has their biases. So again, that next search result. And again, I'm trying to teach you guys how to be deeper thinkers here, how to look more big picture. But that next result was from Al Jazeera. OPCW faked report on chlorine gas attack. Now, I don't entirely believe that. The Guardian, London Guardian, not exactly a right-wing fucking news organization. The London Guardian, chemical weapons watchdog defends Syria report after leaks. From The Intercept, Duma chemical attack on the fog of Syria's propaganda war. So we can see from before, Cui Bono, who benefits. In that instance, Assad had nothing to gain by a chemical weapons attack. Even against terrorist elements, ISIS elements, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the Syrian moderates that B-Rock and fucking Biden were giving weapons to, with the Hilda bitch as Secretary of State. Yeah, it gets deep, man. You've got to stay on top of this. Oh, I'm not interested in politics. Really, motherfucker? Because politics is interested in you. I'm not interested in that Ukraine situation. Well, now that you're seeing the end result of it, now that you're seeing how it affects things globally, how our cadaver in chief is using it as an excuse to do even less about this fucking economic mess that he's created. Yeah, you may not be interested in world affairs, but world affairs definitely interested in you. Remember that. Whew. Another trip down Tangent Street. Sorry. Okay. Where were we? Cui Bono, who benefits? You want to know who benefits from the chemical weapons attack in fucking Ukraine right now? This fucking coked out ass clown. That's who fucking benefits from that. Because the optics of it are going to be even more for the propaganda machine. The same propaganda machine that has lied to us about every fucking facet of these biological and chemical research facilities. Gives them another talking point, doesn't it? Big, bad, evil Putin, the monster. The guy that shells maternity hospitals, the guy that the guy that invaded a sovereign nation in his backyard. I mean, cool for us to invade sovereign nations in other hemispheres, on other continents, on the other side of the fucking planet. But this guy, oh my God, he invaded a sovereign nation in his own backyard that we just happen to be trying to put tactical nuclear weapons in. What a horrible fucking guy. He doesn't stand to benefit a goddamn thing, but Zelensky does. Keep on. And yes, Julie, as you said, follow the money. Always follow the money. I'm sorry that I'm not doing a good job of keeping track of the conversations over here to the side. Wait, Bart. No plan to shoot down a plane full of citizens to justify going to war. Right. As long as we're talking about fucking false flags. You guys should Google Operation Northwoods. Fuck, Aaron, you may be late, man, but I'm in the middle of a fucking rant. I could probably go for another half. You never know. Objection, leading the witness. God, James, I freaking love you, man. If emotions control you, so does everyone else. Absolutely. And of course, Joey defending his Ginger Goebbels. You know, I would be all about Jen Psaki if she were, I don't know, if she were on like fucking Bang Bus or Evil Angel, any of their fine adult entertainment work. I would be all about some Jen Psaki. But you know, as a liar, my God, she's gifted. If the other things she's capable of doing with that mouth rise to the level of her ability to lie, then shit, man. I gotta know. Here's a brief sidebar since I'm on a fucking tangent. You know who I want to bang? Yoko Ono. Yeah, I said what I fucking said. Why? Because that pussy broke up the fucking Beatles. I gotta know. Right. A little more caffeine. Let me just relax for a second. Yeah, that's just what he needs. More stimulants. So now that everybody's gagging at the visual of me fucking banging Yoko Ono, you know, and that scream that she did, you know, when they did it for stop. My brain is a weird place. At the end of the day, people, this is why I don't have an actual news network. At the end of the day, this is because I'm just a crane operator with some fucking opinions, man. I'm not a fucking guru, but the stuff that when I say what I say, yes, man, it's brand identity, but it's true. What I'm saying is coming from the heart. It is guided by the mind. Because I believe these things that I'm saying in my heart of hearts. I believe every bit of this. And I steer it through a lens of fucking critical thought. You may come to a different conclusion. Total sidebar. Brother James, if you are still on board, tell the lovely Miss Nelda I am looking forward to next garden/salsa season. Definitely looking forward to that. I will make the trip to freaking Texas for that. And I'm sure Brother Aaron would agree because he got to participate in some of the salsa glory when I came off that road trip. So thank you for that. Thank you for listening, man. All of my friends that are on board that watch this, that have gifted me with salsa or with advice or with respect or, like Mike with the webcam and, you guys that make it possible, man. Thank you. Fuck, man. I just appreciate y'all being here. Hanging on to these next bullet points, man. Again, getting back to framing. I tried to post something in my personal page earlier, and it was an old video, actually several years old, but it was a Russian sort of folk music group covering Rammstein on accordions and balalaikas. If you're not familiar with the balalaika, it's a stringed instrument that's like native to the Slavic people, best known for coming out of Russia. I will circle back to it. Don't get me started, Ryan. Don't encourage me, bro. Don't encourage me, fucker. So anyway, I posted this thing, and it was a Russian folk group that was covering Rammstein on traditional instruments, balalaikas, fucking accordions, all this kind of stuff. And I went to post it, typed my little header in. And when I went to post it, fucking Facebook pops up with a memo. You realize that you were about to repost something that is essentially Russian state-sponsored media. Well, bitch, it's not about Ukraine. It's a 4-year-old video with some folk guys fucking covering Rammstein. Go fuck yourself, first off. But this is where we're at. If I'd tried to post from the BBC, would I have gotten a ding? Would I have gotten a warning saying that it was, British state-sponsored media, UK state-sponsored media? NPR is literally national what radio? National Public Radio, state-sponsored. No fucking ding when you post an article from them. And again, as we have stated before, all legacy media, including Fox, get off your fucking high horse, some of you conservatives out there. Look, dude, I dig Tucker too. Tucker's like the only fucking voice in the wilderness on that entire goddamn network. But Hannity and the rest of the fucking neocon shills on fucking Fox, they're all state-sponsored propaganda. Might be the right wing or the left wing, but they're still in the same fucking state-sponsored bird. Get over yourself. Again, there's another exercise in critical thinking. People rip on me all the time. I've got liberal and leftist friends. Nah, I really don't have any leftist friends. I got some liberal friends. They rip on me. Dude, even Fox is against what fucking Putin's doing. Don't make the assumption, Sparky, that because you let Maddow or Stelter do your fucking thinking for you, that I, by extension, let Tucker do mine. I think for myself. May process through my fucking filter with as few mainstream legacy media sources as are absolutely necessary. Why? Coming back again. Key bono. Who benefits? Who's trying to sell you a false narrative? I don't think they're still owned by General Electric, but I do know that once upon a time, NBC was outright owned by General Electric. General Electric is one of the country's largest defense contractors. We bring good things to light bulbs, flash cubes, guidance systems for nuclear fucking weapons. Key bono. Who benefits in a full-scale fucking war? Who benefits? Look at the people who look at the defense contractors that have their fucking tentacles in those legacy media organizations. Look at Pfizer buying ads on CNN, MSNBC, and yes, Fox fucking News. Key bono. Money protecting money, power protecting power. No Council of 12, no Elders of Zion, no fucking, no secret, committee needed. Money protects money, power protects power. Follow the money, key bono. Who benefits more? Who is less likely to lie to me? Right? Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, Andrew Klavan. They all have their biases, just like I have mine. But who is more likely to outright intentionally deceive me? A man who is already worth $100 million no matter what he puts on today or who he fucking interviews, or a person whose continued media relevance depends on towing a party line that is controlled by corporate money. Key bono. My entire academic career consisted of one semester at a fucking community college. Yeah. Harvard on the highway down in Houston. North Harris County College. One fucking semester. But in that one fucking semester, I took Intro to Journalism. And there was a man, I'll never forget him, John Ballione. If he's still around, give him a thumbs up. I'm sure he won't remember me, but give him a thumbs up for me anyway. But he hit me with a lesson in that one semester in community college I'll never fucking forget. And it changed my whole perspective and changed my outlook. And in some roundabout way, changed my life. Because I was idealistic. He asked that question, why does the press exist? The press as we know it now, why do they exist in this country? Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Roman. Exactly. Why does the press exist in this country? And I was little idealistic guy. I was like, man, it's there to defend freedom and to fucking hold power to account and all this other stuff. And he broke it down for me, man. He was like, it's there to make money. It's there to make money. He was the one who enlightened me in that little fucking community college intro to journalism class about how corporate money controls the media. And that set me down a rabbit hole that changed my entire perspective for the rest of my natural life. John Ballione. He won't remember me, but I will always remember him. When you're out there and you're talking to people and you're speaking and you're giving them lessons, remember that you might be that John Ballione to somebody. You plant that fucking seed, and you know what? 20 years from now, you might not remember the conversation sitting there at that cafe or wherever the fuck you happen to be doing your podcast. You might not remember somebody that throws in a comment, but they'll remember you. That's the importance of ideas. That's why I encourage you to speak the fucking truth and to spread that fucking gospel. That world full of fucking noise. Narrative noise, narrative noise, narrative noise, narrative noise. Break through that shit and be the fucking signal. You feel me? Facebook, YouTube, to restrict some. This is from CNET News, by the way. Oh, techie rag. Facebook, YouTube, to restrict some Russian state-controlled media across Europe. They could have just said, restrict some Russian state-controlled media and stopped there. Because if you think those algorithmic oopsies are only going to apply to fucking Europe, guess again, Sparky. They're already warning us here pretty soon. It's all going to fucking vanish. I was listening to a podcast earlier in the week, one that Moses turned me on to, in fact, and the podcast said that big tech now has more control over public perception and public opinion than the Catholic Church did before the development of the Gutenberg Press. That's both accurate and frightening. But here's the thing. The internet was supposed to be the Gutenberg Press for us. And for a long time it was. These tech monopolies now. Imagine the Catholic Church at the dawn of it. If the Catholic Church said, okay, the Gutenberg Press now exists. We will own and control every single Gutenberg press, every single letter and die and screw and blueprint that is a part of the Gutenberg Press. Well, of course there would be outliers. There will always be, in the face of fucking Catholic power structures, there will always be a Martin Luther. Well, they're not. You smiling, Ryan? That one was just for you, buddy. Of course, there would always be an outlier. There'd be one or two other Gutenberg presses around that the Catholic Church did not control. But imagine if they controlled almost every one of the Gutenberg presses. They would continue to maintain control. And the few people who were able to circulate, the few pamphleteers who were out there printing those underground, they would be easy enough to dismiss as fringe, as lunatics, as anti-establishment, as pushing enemy propaganda. Ooh, does that sound vaguely familiar? Carrying water for Satan, since that's what we're calling Putin now. Do you see the analogy? Do you see how that fucking shapes up? Big tech has become that. They are the new priesthood. They are the new fucking priesthood. You've heard me say it before. And any difference from the narrative is blasphemy. And anybody uttering such blasphemies is what? A heretic. Quick sidebar into a famous conservative commentary, Pat Buchanan. Love him or hate him. But he quite famously said all of these words that we're hearing now, racist, Islamophobe, homophobe, bigot, xenophobe, this, that, or the other. What are they all words for at the end of the day? Heretic. Heretic. You were guilty of heresy. It's a new priesthood. It's a new religion. Even worse for people like Bill Maher, he's not just guilty of heresy, he's guilty of apostasy. Oh, apostasy. That's my college word. I got about 3 of those. He is guilty of apostasy because he was one among the elite of the alert. He was part of the priesthood. And he left the faith. He left the faith. He hasn't completely left the faith. But he certainly is looking at those pamphlets that are circulating from the 2 or 3 Gutenberg presses that the church doesn't control, isn't he? They'll carve him out soon enough. But all of these words are different words for heretic. Heretic. You are guilty of heresy by differing from the narrative because they are the new fucking priesthood. It is said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I don't know if it even rhymes, but I can guarantee you that it fucking resonates. Sometimes 2 seemingly unconnected things will happen within a certain span of time, as they did in 1953. 1953, 2 things happened that are of critical import. One was a thing called Nikita's Gift. If you can find Ukraine on a map, if you have some basic geographical acumen, again, 2 more of my college words maybe I got more than 3 of those. If you have some decent geographical acumen, and you know about Ukraine, you find it on a map, you know how it shapes up regionally, you know that fucked up little cock that hangs down here, that's the Crimean Peninsula. Crimea historically has always been a part of Russia, at least as far back as the Ottoman Empire. Crimea was a part of Russia. We've discussed this on the sermon before, but the relevance here is what happened in 1953. You see, in 1953, Ukraine was one of the R's in USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. It was all one big happy Soviet family. So when an ethnic Ukrainian, Nikita Khrushchev, shoe-banging weirdo, Google that, Nikita Khrushchev banging shoe on table at the UN. We will bury you. Didn't work out, Sparky. Might yet, though. Nikita Khrushchev, ethnically Ukrainian. He became premier of the Soviet Union. And just as a gimme, just as a purely symbolic gesture, he gave Crimea to Ukraine. That's right. Crimea, home of Sevastopol, and the Soviet, at the time, now Russian, Black Sea Fleet, which maintained, even after the fall of the Soviet Union, maintained leases on those naval facilities for, I believe, a century. But again, feel free to fact check me on that. The point is this: 1953, Nikita's Gift, the Crimean Peninsula, and it came back to haunt us in 2014 after our coup at Maidan. Let's call it what it is. We instigated a coup and installed a puppet government. for NATO interests and for United States corporate interests. And if you doubt that for 2 seconds, look what happened immediately after. What was Joe Biden then, vice president? What happened to his son? Got appointed to the board at Burisma, having no experience in Ukraine, having no experience in the oil and gas business, gets nominated to the board at fucking Burisma, Ukraine's largest gas and oil company. I called it when it happened. Some of you grazers still don't fucking get it. Putin bad. Globox told me Putin bad. Maddow guy said Putin bad. In league with Orange Man. Pathetic. It's pathetic as it is predictable. 1953, Nikita's gift. He gave Crimea to Ukraine. I never thought that the Soviet Union would fall apart. Why would he have thought that the Soviet Union would fall apart at that time? But the Soviet Union did fall apart. And Ukraine, even though Crimea, historically, ethnically, culturally, a part of Russia, was now part of Ukraine. And in 2014, that would come back to bite us in the ass. What else happened in 1953? A fellow by the name of Mohammad Mossadegh. I have an Iranian friend that chides me for my pronunciation. It's Mossadegh. Mossadegh. Okay, fine. Mohammad Mossadegh. I've always pronounced it Mossadegh. You do what you want with that. He's relevant because he was democratically elected in the sovereign nation of Iran. British Petroleum was once the Anglo-Iranian oil concern, right? The British were, and to their credit, again, before we get into one of you crybabies talking about the horrors of European colonialism, just straight up go fuck yourselves in advance. But the British were more or less taking advantage of the Iranian people. They set up all of the equipment. They set up and brought all the technical know-how to drill, to process, to refine, all of it. But it was Iran's oil. And the British were taking it for pennies on the dollar of what it would have been priced in the world fucking market. Mohammad Mossadegh, that's how I've always pronounced it. Just like I'm not going to say Kiev because everybody else changed it up. Mohammad Mossadegh, somebody feel free to check me. He was democratically elected by the people of Iran. And his first move, I love you, Ryan. His first move was to nationalize Iranian oil fields. Now, granted, the Brits had a right to bristle at that because those oil fields before the Brits showed up were just a whole lot of fucking desert with a few little black pools puddling out of it from time to time. Whole lot of oil under that sand, but it's not like the Iranians were doing shit with it. The Brits did set up all of the drilling rigs, all of the refining equipment, all of that. And Mossadegh, democratically elected by the people of Iran, decided he was going to nationalize those oil fields. And he was going to get what he felt like was a fair market price. He was perfectly willing to compensate the Brits for their time and their energy and their equipment and all the fucking know-how and technical input they had put into it, but they were going to pay a fair price for Iranian oil from now on. And what did we do? CIA instigated a coup against Mossadegh. Removed him, arrested him, and installed, see if this is starting to sound familiar, installed a puppet government, the Shah Reza Pahlavi. Fuck with me about that pronunciation too if you want. Reza Pahlavi. I'll spell it for you if you need me to, but you will know him historically, at least tangentially, culturally, as the Shah of Iran. What you will not know about him because it wasn't really discussed in mainstream media, still isn't, is that besides being a puppet government for the United States, Shah of Iran was a savage, if secular, motherfucker. A savage, if secular motherfucker. In the same vein as, Saddam Hussein. In the same vein as Bashar al-Assad, or his father, Hafez al-Assad. A secular, yet brutal dictator. They kept the Muslims terrified and back on their heels, but the Shah, even by the standards of Bashar al-Assad or Saddam Hussein, was particularly cruel. His secret police, the Savak, and again, fuck with me on pronunciation if you will, but you can't fuck with me on the historical knowledge. The Savak, I don't even have the stomach to discuss some of the things that the Shah did to his own people, setting the stage ultimately for an Islamic revolution. So what do those two things have in common? They both happened in 1953. In 1953, Nikita Khrushchev gave the Crimean Peninsula to the Ukraine. And it came back to haunt us. In 1953, we instigated a coup against a democratically elected leader in a foreign country because we and our allies in the UK had corporate business interests there. And that leadership got particularly cruel. The Iranians weren't fortunate enough to have a next door neighbor that shared their ethnicity to come in and put down the people committing those atrocities. But in both instances, the West had their fingers neck deep in it. In 1953, it was the West that put their fingers into the pie at Maidan, instigated a coup, installed a puppet government that went to commit atrocities. Do you see how the two things are connected? Here's another little something. We could get technical between the official origin story, which is going to put it technically 1913, 40 years earlier, as opposed to 1953. But again, the West carved a nation out of Iraq where none had existed, a nation called Kuwait. This one's starting to sound familiar? Before I even get into it, 1991. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. But most of all, it resonates. Kuwait, a sovereign nation that didn't happen to exist until early into the 20th century, was invaded, a sovereign nation invaded by a much larger military power, and we used that as a premise to exercise our own political and financial interests. Is this all starting to sound familiar? Nikita Khrushchev giving a landmass to Ukraine in 1953. Us instigating a coup like we had in 1953 in Iran against Mossadegh and pulling the same thing in Maidan. In Kiev, overthrowing a democratically elected government to install our puppet and get our needs met, and immediately that puppet government commits cruelty against its own fucking people, as they did in 1953 in Iran. 1953. Crimea, 1953. Iran. Roundabout 1953. Bit of a stretch. Again, we could dicker about it, the official origin of Kuwait. But the point is about the way that history resonates. We used Iraq's invasion of a sovereign, smaller country and the atrocities. You remember the atrocities? You remember the first Gulf War? Before even weapons of mass destruction, let's take it all the way back to 1991. Where they brought that young lady before Congress and she testified about Saddam's troops coming into the children's hospitals. Starting to sound familiar? They went into children's hospitals. We're tugging at the heartstrings so you know you're being lied to. They went into children's hospitals and they threw babies out of their incubators. And the entire fucking Grazer public bought it. And what they didn't know was that that young lady was an actual member of the fucking Kuwaiti royal family. But the media sold it to you. The glow box told you what to hate and what to be afraid of, and you fucking Grazers bought it. And now here we are again. Us instigating a coup against a democratically elected government. That democratically elected government using its troops and its secret police to commit atrocities against ethnicities inside its own territorial boundaries. And when another country decides that it's had enough, well, now we've got Iraq invading Kuwait again, don't we? Superior military power invading a nation, a sovereign nation. Spare me your sanctimony. We've seen it all before. Not all of us recognized it. Not all of us remembered it. Not all of us had the historical acumen to be able to process it. But we've seen it all before. And we're watching it all over again. Watching it all over again. It's unfolding right in front of our faces. What was the movie quote from that one film? You can't see it, boy. You ain't got the eyes for it. I'm trying to give you the eyes. What you choose to do with that vision is entirely up to you. But if you have the eyes to see, the spine and the balls to stick with the truth that those eyes reveal to you, you're going to be called a whole lot of things. You're going to be told you're carrying water for Putin. You're going to be told that your patriotism is in question. You're going to be called a traitor. You're going to be called un-American. I've seen that all before, too. Right after 9/11, government cracked down with a fucking surveillance state and all the horror that followed after that. Spent 8 years raging against that. Then old B-Rock gets into power, and some of the same people that had stood right beside me as he expanded those executive overreaches clapped like fucking harp seals waiting for fish because their team was in charge. Yeah, it's like that. We've seen it all before. It's going to be frightening. Don't lose heart. Find the courage to stand in the face of this new priesthood. A priesthood and a church built on deception, built on manipulation, built on falsehoods, built on fear and control, and fear and falsehood being used as methods of control to purvey and push and carry on their narratives and their lies. In the face of that new priesthood, there is no label that I am more proud to wear and go out with on my shield than the word heretic. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Thank you. Thank you. I really don't know what else to say, but thank you. I'm just kind of letting it loose now. And you guys are letting me get this off my chest. You're letting me vent. And the fact that you're here Sunday after Sunday shows me that, not that I'm not a fucking nut job, because I'm definitely a nut job. But clearly, as a nut job, I'm not alone. Clearly, as that lone voice screaming in the fucking wilderness, there's a few of you out there just behind the tree line that are hearing what I'm saying, and you're ready to shout back. And I'm going to be proud to stand behind each and every one of you when the day comes. That's it for the sermon. I'm going to do what we normally do, pass around that little digital collection plate. If anything that I've said is new information to you, shaped your perspective, helped you out, altered your worldview, pissed you off enough to make you stick around to the very end just to see what that fat, toothless fucking cripple was going to say next, I'm going to pass around that little digital collection plate, man. I'm on everything. I'm on PayPal. I'm on Venmo. I'm on fucking Cash App. I'm on Facebook Pay. You name it. You name it. I'm out there. I'm going to pass around that collection plate. If you can drop a little something, that'd be great. This is a labor of love, man, but a little coin every now and then does help out. In any case, if you can't do that, I get it, man. The economy's in the shitter, man. I get it. A lot of y'all don't have the resources. That's totally cool. Here's what you can do for me. If you can't drop any coin in the collection plate, then at least help me spread the gospel. All of my sinner sisters, beautiful ladies, all of my sinner sisters out there. My Reverend's Rangers from the old school, my Prophets of Doom, as we've gotten on board since we started going live with this fucking sermon. I love y'all, man. Help me spread that gospel. Get on your own social media platforms, man. Share fucking replay of the sermon. Share my Twitter feed, my fan page, any of that stuff. Just go, hey, man. Just like Joey said, man. Yeah, this guy's a nut job, but he's our nut job. God may be a fat, toothless cripple, but he's a like-minded, a kindred spirit, and he gets on a rants and raves for a couple hours every Sunday. I think we'll dig it and check it out. Help me get the word out. That would help me immensely. The things that are most important are those prime directives that we go over every week, man. My God, with the amount of noise, it's hard enough not to get buried. With that directive, be the signal, not the noise. When they throw the clouds and the fog and the lies and the deception, you be the signal, that truth to cut through the noise. Be the signal, not the noise. In a world trying to bury you in darkness, be the light. And as always, iron, be the strength in a world full of weakness. Because without that, without the strength, nothing else matters. You guys give me strength, and I hope you can feed off of my strength. I love all of y'all. Appreciate you being here. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. See you next Sunday. Thank you, guys. Peace. Love you.